All right, welcome everybody to the Competition Archery Media Podcast, where we explore all things pertaining to competition archery. The CAM Podcast is brought to you by B3 Archery. I'm your host, PJ Riley, and I'm sitting alongside today wearing his ASA hat, ASA President Josh Grine. Josh had a terrible event over the weekend for folks who probably have heard. Anybody watching this, you tell me. Well, what we know as the Laurel County Fairgrounds, that's what I know.
Yeah.
What happened? What's there? What's gone? What isn't?
Well, some of it we're not sure. So It was a tornado, went through Friday night. Woke up to the phone calls and the videos. What we know for sure is that an F4 tornado went through, I think it's EF4, I don't know the weather terms.
Right.
Went through Laurel County and spanned through, it looks like much of Missouri, Kentucky, that kind of Ohio Valley, destroyed a lot of homes, had a major impact on Laurel County and the surrounding area. The fairgrounds, what we know for certain is that the buildings are gone, at least where they're kind of believe that the epicenter of the tornado actually went right through where Vendor Village would be, kind of crossed through where the buildings were at and up over the power line where the practice ranges start. As far as what trees and stuff are there and what the future looks like, we don't know.
Yeah, right.
But we knew that, of course, even if the fairgrounds would have been in good shape with all that Laurel County was going through and what their coming days, weeks, and months, and probably years look like, that it was not an option to have our tournament out there.
How long did it take you to come to that decision? Was it pretty quick once you heard?
Yeah, by the time, so Saturday mornings, I typically get up, I walk the dogs, have a cup of coffee, and try to disconnect from my phone. And I was sitting in the chair and I kept hearing this buzzing. So I walked over and grabbed my phone. By the time I had heard what was going on and what was taking place, Scott had already spoken to some of our contacts in London. And I mean, we knew instantly that we couldn't have an event. And so it was, the first phone call was obviously to TRU Ball XL saying, hey, here's what's going on. And fortunately, I called Brandon. He had already heard about it. He said he was kind of expecting the phone call. As soon as I spoke with them, it was, let's get the information out to the ASA shooters, and then the cam staff and the TV and satellite truck and all of that. I mean, most of those conversations took place within probably 40 minutes of the initial phone call.
We should mention, at last I heard, at least 19 people from Laurel County were killed. They were still looking. So, I mean, it wasn't just a property destruction. A lot of people killed, too. It was a very devastating event in that area. There was some video I watched of it that was just unbelievable as far as what it did and the path that it cut. You could see it, through the trees and all, just a lot of destruction. But before we get to the archery side of it, okay, so what is happening now at London? They're dealing with this. People want to help. Yeah. What's that all look like? So,
I mean, first and foremost, the two things that I take away out of the weekend, we always talk about ASA as a family, it's community, it's way bigger than archery. And all of our host sites fall into that category. This is extended family. So the top priority of all of ASA all weekend has been, what do we do? How can we help? How do we serve? How do we raise money? And so that leads to the second point, was just overwhelming to me, especially in the world that we live in and the news that we watch. It's pretty easy to get, depressed or upset with the lack of humanity or the lack of compassion in humanity, or just common sense in general, whatever. We're inundated with bad news, and you lose trust in people. And this weekend just has been overwhelming. And that's just, we're ASA, we're archery. In the grand scheme of things, it's just archery.
Yeah, right.
But that community, the way that's come through and the way it's been felt in London is just super encouraging. So I want to make sure I take a moment and thank the entire ASA family and community for their understanding. There's still a lot of stuff we don't have answers to, but also, hey, how do we help?
How many years at London, do you know?
It's 20 something. Yeah. And, it was, I think it's worth calling out and appreciating, what they have done. It's only been a few years since we were actually going to replace London with a site in Tennessee. That fell through. Met with the people in London, and they were, super welcoming and wanting to keep us there. What can we do? How do we make this? Because you're saying it's less than an ideal site. How do we make it an ideal site that you want to come here for the foreseeable future? And we put together a plan. And this year, the city the fairgrounds was going to be, it was this year, you'd have had some road bumps this year, but the shooters would have seen a drastic improvement over previous years. Next year, Scott Parrott has spent the last 3.5 weeks in London, and he just kept telling me, man, next year this is going to be one of our best sites. So they put a ton of work into keeping us there and doing all that they could to support the ASA community. So, I feel like that's super important to call out because it's not going to be seen now this year. And it's just another unfortunate piece for the city of London.
And that was an important event for them, for the community.
It was, yeah.
Economic impact, everybody knows the places that everybody went to. That was big business for them.
Yeah, they don't have a ton of events in that area. We're one of the biggest that come through. And I know a lot of the local businesses, they do rely and depend on, the ASA coming through to help them get their books in order for the year. So that'll be felt this year. We're going to do all that we can to support that community. And I'll actually be in London. I'm going to head out tomorrow evening and go to the fairgrounds on Wednesday morning, evaluate some of our stuff. We had equipment there and figure out what we need to do to get that stuff out of there, get it turned into insurance or whatever. And then also we're going to meet with the city Wednesday afternoon to discuss, what can ASA do long term. And in the short, so just to address that, I know on social media and phone calls and emails, a ton of people, we want to go, we want to help.
How do you help? What can we do?
And we'll know on Wednesday. My assumption is that it's probably not needed in the immediate. I know there are several relief organizations out there and different organizations that are out providing and meeting the immediate needs. And typically the way these things work, the first couple of weeks, there's a lot of help, and then it goes away, and there's still a lot of rebuilding that happens.
Well, and we should mention, this is just 3 days removed from it. I know people want to go out there. It's a disaster area. There's still 100,000 plus without power. Just getting around is, I'm sure they're like, we want professionals here. Other people coming in, we can't really handle that right now.
Yeah, and that's kind of been our stamp is just, we will go out on Wednesday because we have some business stuff that has to be taken care of, and then kind of work with a long-term plan for them. But initially in these events, let the first responders, the people that are trained and certified to be there and provide the best help possible, let them handle it. Once they meet those immediate needs, and then those organizations, they've kind of fulfilled their objectives, so they move out, and that's when communities can be left feeling isolated. And how do we rebuild from here? And that's what ASA, they are family. And so it is important for us to figure out how we partner with them long term to help them get back on their feet and make sure that our community's there next year shooting and back in London.
So I'm an individual archer. I want to help. What avenues do I have through the ASA?
Yeah. Through the ASA, we're channeling and working with the city for everything. So questions that I've gotten the most, what do we do? Like, we want to turn our registration in and just, we don't want a refund. We want to give it back to the city. So the city's going to work with getting that, the ASA is going to work to get that to the city. So that's an option that I know a lot of people have asked about. So I wanted to put that out there, and they'll get confirmation that went to the city and that the whole 9 yards with their registration fee for London. There also are a couple ways. We'll share the link maybe in the description of this podcast, but it'll be on ASA socials and website and app later today. The town has initially set up a GoFundMe page. It is the one that we will link to is officially, it goes to the city office, been set up by a city official. He did that in the interim because they were getting tons of questions. Like they needed a quick solution to give to people. So I'll get the information out for the GoFundMe. Also, any of the community trust banks, which I think there's several through, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, the community trust banks also have an account set up that you can walk in, make a donation to the City of London. That'll go directly, be distributed by the bank to the City of London. To my understanding, there's no administration fees or anything there. Any money given goes to London. And then long term, I found out this morning they're working with United Way to set up an account that people can donate for kind of the long-term rebuild of London. There will be more instructions come out with that, how to earmark that, how to get it to the United Way to make sure that it goes to London. Again, we're in the early stages of all this together, but the immediate, there's a GoFundMe. That's if you want to do something financially. One of the other things that is taking place, I know right now, Ryan and Trish Reed, they're our state directors in Kentucky. They jumped on it right away. What can we do? London's canceled. This is our state. How do we help? So they're actually the weekend. So the date's 29th through 30th. It's been a long weekend. My brain's not working. It's the same weekend that London was supposed to be.
Yes.
They're going to be at Chickasaw Archery Club, holding a fundraiser for the City of London. They've got a bunch of cool things happening. They're going to be auctioning off targets. They've got door prizes, giveaways. They're going to run it in only 4 classes. So they're going to have a 40-yard known, 40-yard unknown, 50-yard known, 50-yard unknown. And it's open to everybody.
Yeah.
And Ryan and I haven't talked about this, but I'm going to throw it out there on the air. So if you're not that 40-yard max and you've got a youngster, we'll figure out some walk-ups. We want it to be open to everybody. There are, as of about an hour ago, Ryan said he had about 20 pros that are committed to come in. And all the proceeds of that are going to go to the City of London. They're working with outside sponsorships to get some payback and try to just turn it into an event that they can raise a ton of money and blow it up. So if you're in the Kentucky area, if you're not in the Kentucky area and you had the weekend off and you were planning on being in the Kentucky area, maybe check that out. I think the Chickasaw Archery Club is only about 40 minutes south of Louisville. If that's too far, I know there are quite a few states, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida are states that have already reached out. They want to do a fundraiser shoot that weekend or in close proximity as well. That information is being put together today, and that will all be on the ASA's website and app with information on what clubs are doing fundraisers, how to register and get there, and we'll get all that information out as soon as we can.
Archers coming out, using archery to help out. That's what we like to hear.
Pretty cool.
Now, moving on to the nuts and bolts. What does this mean? This would have been the 4th event, shooter of the year. Are we rescheduling? What's the future of the 2025 season?
So rescheduling clearly in London, not an option. Looking at other venues, it just becomes really difficult at the point of the season that we're in to reschedule. We're the 4th event, which means we only have about 8 weeks left of the National Pro-Am season. Where do you fit that in at? It would have to be a site that we already go to. I mean, I just mentioned what Scott's been doing. He's been there for 3.5 weeks with a couple other ASA staff, and that's at a site that we've already been to. The ranges are there. It's a ton of work to get set up. To go to a new site that ASA's never been and make that, it's just not possible. I've talked to people and best intentions, people call, hey, there's been an R100 here, there's been this event here. I get it, and I love the ideas and the excitement, but what we need to do with vendor villages and parking and range layout, and I mean, there's a very specific equation or methodology to how that's all set up. To turn that around in a new place in a couple of weeks is just not an option. And then, secondary to when we kind of talked through this process is we put our schedules out in December. people, a lot of the majority of our shooters have jobs. They're putting in vacation. They're working out the details. To kind of throw another event in there that's not on that schedule is going to limit participation or make it difficult for people to attend. And then that becomes problematic when you look at Shooter of the Year.
For sure.
If you've added something and not everybody is able to participate, that doesn't feel right for our community as a whole either.
Right.
And so just with all those things, and if you push it back, you say, okay, we'll add an event, we'll make Coleman a regular shoot, and we'll put the Classic at the end of August or beginning of September. Kids are back in school. People don't have vacation. A lot of the hunters are starting their hunting trips, and it's just It doesn't feel like it's something that we can do in the time frame we have.
If you can't get to that shoot and for Shooter of the Year, you didn't want that to be your drop, and now, that could just get sticky.
It's so
you don't want to cancel one, but
I mean, the last thing we want to do as an organization is cancel one. We have so much fun at those things, but I mean, in an event like this, in the time of year that it happens, it's just something that I don't foresee a way around it. And so what that'll mean for the Shooter of the Year, the Rookie of the Year, some of those ongoing things, we're going to take one event off. So instead of 4 events plus the Classic for Shooter of the Year, it'll be 3 events plus the Classic. Whatever class you're in, because there's a few different distinguishers out there, it's just -1. So that's the way we'll run it. 2020 ran very similar. And so that keeps everybody in the game that's currently in there. And if you loved London, if you were the Nathan Brooks of the world that just loved it and always tore it up out there, my apologies. But that seems to be the best scenario for everybody. And also there's a lot of archery that's taking place. That weekend, Chickasaw Archery Club, I would love to see people that, they had plans to do a Pro-Am, find one of the fundraisers locally. I get it. It's not the same. It won't have 2,000 shooters there. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I'd love for 2,000 shooters to show up at one of these fundraisers. Yeah. But give the option for people to go participate, connect with the ASA family for a great cause, and can shoot your bow that weekend for sure, but just not in London.
Does this have any impact? Like, okay, we move on to Metropolis now. Well, before we do that, to the ASA, what do you have to do? You said you had some equipment there. What do you have to do to reconcile London before you can move on to Metropolis?
I don't know. No, we spent the weekend, in camp. There was a ton to do with camp too. I mean, that was Saturday morning. With the first phone calls. We've got TV time. We have subcontractors that were booked. There's a satellite.
Let's talk about that. I don't even know everything. Like, will there just be dead air when we were going to do the pro pressure point shoot downs?
No, live TV. And they always have a backup plan. I mean, even if it's a Super Bowl, there's always a backup plan for live TV. So, Sportsman's Channel is just going to run with other programming that they have, but it's that there were kind of after I sent out the press release that we were canceling, I sat there with my notebook and I just started like, who do I have to call? And man, it was a list. It was like stuff that you don't even, that I don't think about on a daily basis of like, well, I got to let this person know and this person know. And so for Cam, taking care of all that stuff over the weekend, ASA, we met this morning as a staff. We all got on a video call and talked through what we need to do at the office. And people that want refunds, that, you got a couple options. So let's talk about that, and then I'll talk about what we're going to do in London and the conversion. But you have a couple options that we talked about this morning. You can call in for a refund, which will go if you paid with a credit card. In the last few months, there is kind of a limit to when our site lets us go back and refund to a card. But if it's possible, it'll be refunded right back to your card. If it's gone past that time length, we'll cut checks every Thursday until we get through the refunds and processing, hearing from people. You can roll that registration fee over to the next event that you're going to attend if you're going to attend another one, or you can also have that earmarked to be donated to the City of London. So anyway, we met this morning as a staff and talked through what we need to do. Delta McKenzie and 2 tractor and trailer loads of targets that were coming, and all of that stuff. And I think we've buttoned up London. with the exception of Scott and myself being in London on Wednesday to assess the damage if we want a work trailer there. We had an open trailer. We had one of our side-by-sides there, and trying to determine what we can salvage, what's a loss, then working with the insurance company to get that taken care of. Anything in the work trailer that would need replaced before Metropolis, we'll get taken care of. We're having 2 guys from Illinois that are part of our ASA staff drive down with their pickup trucks so that anything is salvageable can be loaded up in their truck and taken straight to Metropolis. So,
Yeah.
Again, I don't know a lot, but the one thing that I do know is this is the best community I've ever been a part of. And it's like one phone call and things work themselves out. So,
Do you know at this point, like Wednesday, that you can even get there
we can.
to the fairgrounds?
Yeah, we can get to the fairgrounds. Again, we went through the city to make sure that we were not going to be a problem or in somebody's way.
Yeah.
But Scott's gotten to know them very well. He's been working with them all on a daily basis for the last 3.5 weeks. And so we discuss with them. We'll actually ride out to the fairgrounds with somebody from the city. Then we'll meet with our contacts and host organizers and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'll say as I think about the people in London, and you've heard me say it before, I think I've said it on this podcast, when people throw out, what about this site or what about this site? This shows the levels of commitment, relationship, and engagement that, we go to sites because we've got the right relationships and the right people. And so when something like this happens, it does hurt because they're family. But it is something that I think, ASA's seen the benefit of that at Coleman 2 years ago with the rain and how the city kind of came up with a plan for us to continue to have our shoot. And what all these host sites and organizations do for us, we now have the opportunity to return that. And that relationship is paramount. And so when people call and they're like, well, you didn't even look at this place. I'm like, what? There's no community close by. Like, we don't have the community support and relationships that we're going to need to make this work.
Right.
And when things happen like this, because of that, it's personal for us.
Are you planning anything for Metropolis to do with London? Like anything special there, or some kind of fundraiser or something like that? Or
hasn't even let me write that down.
I'm going to
this is how I'm going to the next one right now. We don't know. We've not thought or talked that far ahead.
Yeah.
But I am going to write it down because it's everything's possible at this point, PJ.
Yeah. Huh. Are you aware of a natural disaster like this ever having canceled an event before? I know we had COVID year, some stuff got canceled, but
actually in our meeting this morning, Mike was part of that. Mike Tyrell, the co-owner of ASA and a guy who's been doing this for the last 26 years.
Yeah. And
this is one of those times I'm like, Mike, I'm glad you're around because I like to lean on your expertise. It's like, Mike, what's the protocol? He goes, I don't think.
Josh, what is the protocol when the power goes out in the middle of a podcast?
I give up. What a weekend. I think at this point I'm getting punked.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Josh, after we had a temporary power outage there right in the middle of our podcast talking about natural disasters, what is the protocol? Is there a protocol for a natural disaster cancellation of a tournament?
Yeah. So in our meeting this morning, we had Mike Tyrell on the meeting, and that's a question I asked him. Like, Mike, what's protocol here? And he said, I don't know that we've ever had to do this before. Of course, there's been events canceled during the event. 2020, going into the year, there was a restructure and rescheduling there. But during the season with something like this, in his memory, he's not sure they've ever done this before. So no, there wasn't a protocol, and that's Fortunately, as far as handling some of the logistics with most stuff going online and most people registering online, it's pretty easy to navigate through. I mean, as we've already discussed, refunds are easily handled online, moving registration forward pretty easy. As far as what we were going to do with like rescheduling and shooter of the year, that was kind of something we had to put together this morning and look back at 2020 and how we handled it then. And so we made a protocol. Hopefully we never go through
There
something
is one
like
now.
this again.
Yeah, hopefully you never have to use it again. So, I don't even know what I was going to say right there.
It's been a weekend, and then the power goes out. It's like
Right in the middle of this.
We were in a good flow earlier, and now it's,
Yeah, now it's all broken up. But I guess just talk about like in the grand scheme of things. Okay, we had a tornado come in there. I mean, me personally, I keep thinking, what if that had been when we were there? I keep thinking about that. Man, that would have been awful. It was awful, but if all of us had been there, more people on site, more infrastructure would have been on site there. That's just, what can you do?
Yeah, well, we can't think
Mother
too much.
Nature's undefeated.
She is undefeated, and we've been trying not to think too much of the what ifs. It's like,
Yeah,
hey,
you can.
What is the current situation? What's the current situation in London? At the end of the day, ASA archery as a whole, it's a game. We're blessed to be able to participate in it. The shooters are blessed to be able to, find a hobby, make some money, even if they've got a full-time career in it. At the end of the day, it's a game. And we're all super blessed to be here. And we just keep that in perspective that, there are people going through things that are way, way more pressing, way
For
more
sure.
important. And, we can take this community, this family we have, and how do we do our part to help the people of London. And, I think it's that perspective that we all need to have. Like, hey, this is a game. We love to do it. It's a passion. For some, it's a career, but it's still a game. And there's just bigger things that more pressing matters at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I did see it was interesting to see them name the places that they were talking about that really got hit. And Laurel County Fairgrounds, Levi Jackson State Park.
Yep.
I saw that one named. I mean, a tornado hits a big area, but they were naming specifics that we've all seen as like, yeah, this thing went right through there.
Yeah, this is the first time that I've experienced something to this level where you could associate with, right? Whether you're watching the news over the weekend or seeing stuff on social media, it's like, it's the first time in my life where I'm like, I know exactly where that is. And I have memories of being there, or Levi Jackson State Park. I mean, a lot of the shooters stay there. They've got shrimp boils down there. And, cookouts, and we've been down there riding around in the golf cart or the cam truck back in the day and visiting with people. And so, yeah, this one, it definitely hits a little closer to home. And then knowing a lot of the people impacted or affected by it, it makes it different. And, it's been a sombering weekend, a sombering day as we kind of work through this stuff.
Is it your expectation? Again, this is only 3 days out, but is it your expectation that we'll all be back there again next year?
Yes. We will do everything in our power. And from what we've seen of pictures, and, the big concern is, are there any trees left? And the initial report wasn't good. But where we have seen a little more pictures and have more information now, I think it's definitely possible. We were one of the reasons I said Scott has been there the last 3.5 weeks. We're putting in several new ranges in a different spot, not on the power lines, was unaffected. And, I talked about all of it's extensive what London, the city of London, the county, the Laurel County and the fairgrounds have kind of all come together. They had this extensive plan to make this everything that ASA's ever wanted in a shoot-off spot or in a shoot spot. And so knowing the work that they've put in, seeing the pictures we have now, we're going to do everything within our power to make sure that we're back there in 2026 for the ASA Pro-Am and for the City of London.
Good deal. Like to hear that. Okay, so just to wrap up, where people can go to stay on top of the information is, of course, all the ASA social channels.
ASA social channels, Facebook, the website, the app. If it's not on there, if it's a question you have that's not on there, I would say wait a couple days. We're probably aware that question's out there, and we just, a couple times you've asked questions. I'm like, I don't know. As soon as we have information for our community, how to help, logistics about tournaments, it'll be on those places, so keep an eye out for that email as well. And then as it pertains to donating to the City of London, again, the ways to do that right now is a GoFundMe page that will be on ASA socials this afternoon. That's where you can start. You've got the Community Trust Banks if you're in that Ohio Valley region. There seems to be quite a few of those, and then long term they're setting up with the United Way. So and again, as we have more details about all those things, you'll find it on the ASA website, app, and through email.
All right, Josh, we appreciate your time today. Folks, keep thinking of those folks in Laurel County, London area of Kentucky. That's another episode of the Competition Archery Media Podcast. You can find it on the platforms where you find all your favorite podcasts. Thanks for being here.